Their business is based on commanding our attention. The best way to hold our attention is to scare us or to make us outraged. What content does that? Hate speech, conspiracy theories, and disinformation. So they're not sincere when they tell you they're going to get rid of that stuff, because it's the lubricant for the whole business model. So when they take down the pandemic video, they only take down the first instance. Everyone that's up there with subtitles is still there. There are lots of copies of Pandemic still on there. They had a thing, 2 months later, that so-called press conference in front of the Supreme Court got, I want to say, 14 million views on Facebook the first day. Pandemic only, I think, had 4 million views, right? And this was 2 months later. They'd already told you they're going to get rid of this stuff. And this thing got it had 20 million views against all things on the first day. I mean, pure disinformation, telling you to use hydroxychloroquine and all this other stuff. And I mean, undermining a pandemic response, that should not be legal. And it shouldn't matter what your politics are. I mean, that's insane. And, I look at this promoting white supremacy, promoting racial hatred. These guys, that's core to the business. I mean, a study that Facebook did was leaked to the Wall Street Journal. Wall Street Journal, right? Not a liberal paper. 64% of the time when people join an extremist Facebook group, they do so because of a recommendation made by Facebook. So you ask yourself, where's all this QAnon stuff coming from? That's Facebook pushing people into these groups. Facebook is indoctrinating people in extremist perspectives. YouTube does the same thing. Instagram does the same thing. Twitter does a different version of the same thing. And I look at this and I go, you know what? We ought to have a debate about that. And maybe we're going to decide we don't want to live in a democracy. Okay. But we ought to have a real debate about it, because these guys are driving us to a place that suits their business model, but it's not democratic.
And what you're getting at here, I think, is really essential, is that people who have kind of come out in favor or against any censorship and things like this, their line has always been, it's free speech. You can't limit free speech. What you're saying is, this isn't about free speech. This is about a business model that actually drives people to these groups because it's good for them. So this is not free speech.
The thing that's going on here is, I don't want to censor anybody, okay? I would have left Alex Jones on Facebook and Twitter, and YouTube. But YouTube's recommendation engine recommended Alex Jones 15 billion times, more than the sum of the entire reach of the main journalistic organizations in the United States. And my point is, I'm sorry, it's the algorithmic amplification of hate speech, disinformation, conspiracy theories that I want to get rid of. In the battleground of ideas, all ideas should be allowed to be in the conversation. But you're not supposed to put your thumb on the scale for the most extreme and dangerous ones. You shouldn't be putting your thumb on the scale for any of them, right? And when Mark says, I should be the arbiter of truth, I agree with him. The problem is, it's a completely disingenuous statement, because he's nowhere near neutral. He actually has a very specific point of view. It's a very self-interested point of view, and it is extremely hostile to the interests of the vast majority of Americans.